The pre-production phase is all about understanding a need or identifying a problem that is out there in the real world. This should be done thoroughly before development starts so that your game fits a purpose. Step 1. A needs analysis. A needs analysis is a process usually used in healthcare to carry out an in-depth look into a given problem. This problem, in this context, is essentially what you want your serious game to be about. Do you want to change behaviour, impart new knowledge, or do a mixture of the two? A deep understanding of the problem will help you define your goals that you want your serious game to target. In order to conduct a simple needs analysis, follow the following steps. 1. Identify a problem and research what is already out there. 2. Based on this research, you should have a pretty good idea what is out there and how your idea of a serious game is going to fit in this space. 3. Identify your target audience and who are going to be the stakeholders. Who are the people that are going to support you in developing this serious game? And who are the people that are going to actually play the game? Are there going to be people that need to deliver your game, such as a teacher or a facilitator? Or is your game just going to be targeted towards your players? 4. If possible, you need to talk to your end users and the stakeholders involved. Participatory design, or the ability to design with your end users, is really useful at this stage. You can get their feedback and really get to grips with what is it that they want themselves, not just what you want as a designer. 5. Are there any foreseeable problems that you now know about? It's helpful to take these into consideration now at the beginning before you start really designing your game. Step 2. Pedagogic and methods mapping. So, where step 1 is all about defining the background and context of your serious game, step 2, the pedagogic and methods mapping, is all about defining what you really want it to achieve. It's all about setting objectives that can be evaluated at a later point. These can be learning outcomes. So did your player, from playing your game, increase their knowledge about a given subject? Or they can be behaviour change outcomes. So does your player, after playing your game, now think and feel differently about a given subject? Let's look at an example. I want to design a game that helps students learn about management. After doing my needs analysis on the subject of management, and after speaking to several stakeholders, such as possibly a teacher or a lecturer in this subject, I have found out that there is a problem teaching about team conflict resolution. Based on this information, I am ready for step 2. I need to think of an outcome that my players will be able to do better as a direct result of playing my game. This outcome should be informed by the needs assessment. An example outcome for my game on management could be that I want my players to be able to identify team conflict by the end of playing my game. With this outcome set, I now know that this is the purpose of my game. It is what I will evaluate later on, and it is how I will evaluate the success of my game. Now I have my outcome to identify team conflict. I need to know exactly how are my players going to do this in the game. How are they really going to learn to identify team conflict? This is the methods mapping approach of step 2. Here, we need to identify what is the best learning approach that fits with our target outcome. Teachers utilise a variety of ways to impart knowledge with their students. We need to do the same with our serious game. I want my players to identify team conflict. Therefore, based on learning theory, I believe that role play may fit with my outcome that I want them to achieve. Role play is the method that I will apply in the game to ensure that my players achieve the learning outcome, which is to identify team conflict. Setting out clear learning objectives and methods early on in this process provides us with a clear direction for our serious game. Step 3. Aesthetics and learning objectives mapping. What do we mean by aesthetics? Well, aesthetics in this context means your user experience or the fun type that is in your game. This step is about choosing the right fun type and style that fits with what you've already developed in step 1 and 2. Some fun types, as discussed in the mechanics, dynamics and aesthetics model, are as follows: fantasy, fellowship, narrative, challenge, sensation, expression, and discovery. These aesthetics trigger specific emotional reactions based on what the game is guiding them to do. It is worth noting that games can and usually are made up of several different fun types. Going back to our game example from step 2, our learning outcome is to identify team conflict using the method of roleplay. Now we need to map this to a relevant fun type or aesthetic. In this case, fantasy and narrative would probably fit really well here. Roleplay, as seen in theatre, is complemented by make-believe settings and enhanced by story-driven experiences. Choosing the right fun type for your game here is really a judgment call. It's about finding synergies with your learning outcomes and what you want your players to emotionally experience. Step 4, technology and end-user requirements planning. This step is really about taking the time to consider how your serious game is going to be delivered, where, and flag up any potential issues. A good starting point is to consider the 3 following areas: technology, environment, user-based needs, and constraints. Let's start with technology. When deciding what platform that you want your serious game to be delivered on, it's really important to understand what your user has access to. There is no point in designing, say, a virtual reality experience if your end user is never going to have access to the equipment. Schools, colleges, universities and businesses, these will all have different technology-based constraints or needs. You may find, for an example, that if you are designing a serious game for a school, they may want it to be compatible with a smartboard they already have in-house. All things to consider, especially when it comes to choosing the platform for your serious game. Environment. So where is your game most likely to be played? If your game is made for school children, then is it going to be delivered to them in a school environment? If so, this may mean differing class sizes or different opportunities to play the game. This would be a very different environment and approach for your games design, say, to playing at a home environment. These considerations early at this point may help you decide if your game is suitable for a multiplayer or single-player approach. User-based needs and constraints. So here, you really need to consider just who is your end user. Do you have different end users? Is there just the player, the person that you want to gain knowledge or to change their behaviour from playing your game? Or is there also a facilitator who will help deliver your game to the end player? Facilitators are usually the people that fit the role of teachers, parents, consultants, or trainers. An example need of a player could be the chance to repeat a section of something that is difficult in the learning material. An example need of a facilitator could be that they need to pause the game at any point to then explain part of the material to the players. This step allows you, the designer, to consider any environment factors, user needs or constraints in order to help develop your serious game. Hopefully, by defining this stage, you'll be able to create something that is functional and user-friendly. Step 5, concept development. This step is all about bringing together what you've done in the previous steps together into a fully fleshed out concept. It is time to create a concept document. This document should list all your intended design elements for your game. These can include the learning outcomes, the methods, the aesthetics or fun types, any mechanics, and style that you wish to put in your game. The whole process of the transdisciplinary model is proposed as an iterative process. This means that you must continue to refine and reflect and get your users on board to help you design this game. Using participatory design, which is the ability to have end users come on board and help you in this design process, means that when you give them the concept document, they will be able to help you refine your idea. This ensures that your game will be functional and user-friendly. Once you are happy with your final concept document, it's on to phase 2, production.